Well, thank you everybody for being here. We are very excited to have you for tonight's special BU career webinar, Mastering Your Journey, How to Use Your Past to Intentionally Create Your Future. My name's Jeff Murphy. I'm a member of the career programs team in the Office of Alumni Relations. Oh, sorry, I just lost my script. Shoot. All right, I'm gonna have to look over on this side here. I'm delighted to be joined by my colleague from the Terrier Network and the Bloom Family Leadership Initiative, Emily Howard, as the BU Alumni Association joins Terrier Athletics in celebrating National Girls and Women in Sports Day 2022 to present this special event. Today's webinar is offered to our 352,000 alumni around the globe and all of our current students, especially our inspiring and hardworking student athletes. Throughout your career, BU is committed to helping you define and achieve your professional goals. And we aim to do this by providing everybody with access to a series of valuable online communities, social media tools. I know that we have alumni and students, again, joining us from some very far away places. Please know that we really do value your participation in this and every program that we offer. Emily, thank you again for playing the part that you've played in tonight's festivities.
Thank you, Jeff. I'm so excited to partner with Alumni Relations on this event. As Jeff mentioned, my name is Emily Howard, and I'm the Director of Leadership and Career Development for BU Athletics. In this role, I have the opportunity to support the career development of our student athletes, which includes connecting them to our incredible Terrier alumni, expanding their professional networks, and planning for life after BU through events like the workshop we have planned for you tonight.
Well, thanks again for all the good work that you're doing on behalf of our student athletes. Before I introduce tonight's speaker, just a couple housekeeping notes from me. Tonight's presentation is being recorded and will soon be made available for on-demand viewing on the BU Alumni and Friends website, which you can find at www.bu.edu/alumni. And our speaker is very eager to answer any questions that you may have. You're welcome to submit them throughout the presentation using either the chat, which we talked about, or you can also, under the same menu, you might find Q&A. That's actually going to be a great place to submit your questions. Click on Q&A, go ahead and type those at any point. We're going to save plenty of time at the end to make sure we get to all of your questions. It's now my pleasure to introduce tonight's speaker, BU College of Communication alumna Amy Young. Amy is on a mission to eradicate burnout. She's the founder and CEO of Redefine Possibility, a media platform and coaching service for successful professionals who long to lead a more purpose-driven life. She offers one-on-one and group coaching programs and has spoken and facilitated leadership programs at Google, Oxford University, CEOX, and Keller Williams. Prior to founding Redefine Possibility, Amy was a top partner lead in Google's Global Partnerships Group, where she led relationships with their most important media, broadcast, and entertainment partners. She also spent 14 years at CBS Television, holding executive roles in content distribution, business development, and sales. Amy earned a bachelor's degree from COM, where she was also a member of the varsity soccer team, Go Terriers. She's an ICF certified professional coach and is a graduate of the Women Transforming Leadership program at the University of Oxford Said Business School. Amy currently resides in New Jersey with her husband and 3 kids. Amy, we are really, really excited to have you here tonight. Thank you so much for doing this for us. Let's have you go ahead. You've got a slide deck to share with everybody for your presentation, if you wouldn't mind getting that up. And then the floor is all yours.
Thank you so much. And thank you again for having me. Hi, everybody. Jeff, are we good? You can see my screen?
It looks fantastic. Perfect.
All right. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. As Jeff mentioned, my name is Amy Young. 1 second. My slides are now not moving. There we go. All right. We're good to go. I'm Amy. As Jeff mentioned in that very generous bio, I'm a COM and CGS graduate and a former Terrier athlete. So it means a lot to me to be here tonight. And I want to thank you for spending your time with me. I know that time is one of your most precious assets. So I really don't take it lightly that you have chosen to be here with me, no matter whether you're watching live or whether you're catching up on the replay. So a bit of a fun story about me. When I was about 8 or 9 years old, my dad worked for Miller Brewing Company. And because he worked in sales for Miller, we got to go to some really, really cool sporting events. It was just part of the deal. And so when I was about 8 or 9, we went to an IndyCar racing event. And at these events, often they would have these wonderful hospitality areas whereby they would bring all sorts of talent, whether it was a driver from the cars and clients together to kind of, schmooze in the background. And so I got pulled into one of these hospitality tents with my parents when at the tender age of 8 or 9. And I will never forget walking in there and seeing the most beautiful woman across the room. And I turned to my mom and I said, "Mom, I want to be a Miller girl when I grow up." And my mom turned to my dad and said, "Michael, we are not taking her to any more Miller events." And for those of you who might still be in school or who might not know what a Miller girl is, they were there to promote the beer, right? They were beautiful. This was the height of the 80s. They wore their tube dresses, their big hair, and they seemed so glamorous to me. And it was the first time I can remember actually thinking about something as a career. And now, well, obviously I did not end up growing up to become a Miller girl. What I do get to do now in my career is help people actually find careers that they feel passionate about and love. But there's a reason that in my bio, I refer to myself as a life and career coach. And that is because so often when people come to me, right, they think it's because they feel stuck and they want to make a change in their careers. Right? It's just about finding that next leap. It's just about getting more money. It's just about having the title. When so often the change that we want to make actually starts within ourselves. And so the process of coaching becomes this combination of both looking at yourself in conjunction with the changes that you want to make externally. So what we're going to do is have a little bit of fun tonight using my journey as a guide to walking you through some scenarios that maybe you can look at in your own journey to introduce some tools that you can use to take a look back at where you've been in order to help inform you with where you go. Now, like Jeff said, I really, really encourage you to use the chat. I'm going to call on you from time to time. If you're resonating with something, please go ahead and feel free to put it in. I might call on you to put a couple of things in the chat. And obviously, as Jeff said, if you have any questions, please do put them in there. We are going to leave time at the end. And so as I mentioned, right, this is about changing the whole picture. You can't change the fruits of a tree if you don't change the root. So if you are looking to change your external circumstances, the most surefire way to do that is to start by looking at the root of the issue. And so often that is within ourselves. So for me, that started with this message: what makes you think you are so special? Now, I know this now because I've been able to look back on my life and career, and I can see now that this is a statement, this belief, this thought that I had of, well, why am I anything special, has played a role throughout my career. And I'm going to walk you through what that looks like. So now, for any of you who were maybe over 40 like me, you might remember this movie, Jaws, right? Jaws 3 was a cinematic marvel whereby it was in 3D and Jaws attacks SeaWorld. When I watched this movie, though, I became enamored with the main female character. This woman was a marine biologist. She got to train and work with dolphins every single day. And I remember thinking, wait, that's actually a job? People get to do that? And so for the next 3 years, I spent a lot of my time researching dolphins. I spent a lot of time learning what it meant to be a marine biologist because that's what I really thought I wanted to be. In fact, that's how I first learned about BU, because I learned about the great marine biology program you have out there on the Cape. And so fast forward to freshman year in high school, when I took my very first biology class, and I got a C. And I thought, oh, well, gosh, maybe that means I'm not supposed to be a marine biologist. Why did I ever think that I was smart enough to do something special like that? It also played a role in my soccer career. I had the fortune of playing at a really high level. On a club level, I played against Carly Lloyd. And at the state level, I actually had the opportunity to mark Abby Wambach at a certain point in my career. And for those of you who don't know me, I am 5'3", and so she is not. And so marking her definitely added a lot of character to my soccer playing ability and skills. But as I started getting higher and higher up the chain, and I had more coaches telling my parents, gosh, she really has a lot of talent. She really has the ability to do something and be something. The more pressure I started putting on myself, and the more this message of what makes you think you're so special started eating away at me up until the point where I started imploding, right? I wasn't playing my best, right? I started second guessing every shot that I would take, right? I started missing shots that normally wouldn't be an issue for me because I was letting my thoughts and my narratives control the way I played the game and change my relationship with something that I loved. Now take this further into college, whereby I was a television management major. I actually fell in love with television in high school. We had a television studio and decided that I thought I wanted to be a broadcast journalist. In fact, I had a teacher in the hallway in high school stop me and say, forget soccer, you should go be a broadcast journalist. You're really good at this. And so it was a no-brainer when I got accepted to BU to come and be a part of the television program. And I remember sophomore year, when you have to declare your major, at that time, it was on a piece of paper. You literally wrote down what you wanted to major in. And I still remember looking down at that line and thinking, who am I to be the next Katie Couric? I'm not going to want to live in the middle of nowhere. I'm not going to want to make no money for the first 10 years. What am I doing? This is crazy. Who am I to think that I could be that? And so instead of putting broadcast journalism down, I put down television management. And now I'm very glad to have had that journey. And it took me wonderful places. And I still got to work in television and have great experiences. But there's always going to be that little part of me that wonders, what would have happened if I had put down the choice that I really wanted, the dream that I really, really had? So we all make choices, right? Every single day, we wake up and we make choices from the time we decide to wake up to the time we go to bed at night, right? How many of us, actually you can put this in the chat, how many of you look at your phone first thing in the morning when you wake up, right? If you do that, go ahead and put that in the chat. I'm certainly guilty of that, right? It's these little choices, right? I can see, yes, it's these little choices that we make every single day that set the trajectory for every single action that takes place after that. And so when we have these messages, right, when we have these limiting beliefs, they become the filter with which we make all of our conscious choices. Now, the great news is we are in our own choose our own adventure story. For those of you who remember these books, and I'll explain them for those of you who don't, Choose Your Own Adventure was basically a book where at the end of the chapter, you got to choose what happened to your character, right? If you wanted your character to go ahead and jump off the cliff, you would turn to page 150 to see what happened. If you wanted your character to turn around and walk back, turn to page 95 and see what happened, right? Now, I fully admit I totally cheated with these books. And I would always kind of go to the section that I wanted. And if it wasn't the right outcome, or maybe my character died, because that would sometimes happen, I would go back and make the other choice, right? And unfortunately, we don't have that choice often in our lives, but we do have the agency to make our choices that intentionally lead us forward. And so that's why this message, the what makes you think you're so special, when I can stand back now and look at it, I am able to see how much that affected every single decision that I have made. And now I'm going to walk you through some steps to create awareness around these messages. But what I know is that I received this message when I was very young from a person very close to me who probably didn't even mean to tell me, this message. It was somebody who I, was probably frustrating, and they turned to me and said, what makes you think you're so special, right? And as a young girl, I internalized that to say, oh, well, gosh, I guess what if I'm not so special, right? And so it was this process of beginning to unravel the system of choices that I made, and then what happened from that. Now I'm going to use a fun little exercise. So if you're multitasking here, be sure to come back to me. I want to use a fun demonstration to walk you through what this actually looks like. Because those messages, the what makes you think you're so special, right? The who am I to be this way, right? The I'm not smart enoughs, right? The I'm not good enoughs, right? All of those messages that so many of us hold down inside that change the trajectory of where we're going, right? Those sit in our subconscious. Okay, we have two minds. We have a conscious mind that represents anywhere, scientists believe, from about 3 to 5% of our brains, and our subconscious minds, which make up the other 95 to 97%. And our subconscious primarily lives within our body. This is where a lot of those limiting beliefs and those messages lie that we don't even know exist, because so many of us spend so much time living from the neck up. We live in that conscious place, okay? And we think that our decisions are being made from up here, when so often they're being made from our bodies. They're being made from our subconscious. And so here's what this process looks like. So again, come back to me, stay with me, as I'm about to give you a fun little virtual demonstration of what this looks like, okay? I'm actually gonna step up here on my bed and talk a little bit louder here, okay? But this isn't what you expected, right? So here I am, I'm about 145 pounds, okay? I am straddling a 13,000 ton elephant, okay? And all 145 pounds of me is your conscious mind. The 13,000 ton elephant that I'm riding right now, this is your subconscious. So if I, in my conscious mind, am up here saying, I'm going to start my business. And in my subconscious mind, the elephant's saying, you fail at everything you do. Who are you to start a business? Am I going to be able to steer that elephant where I want it to go? Another example, I'm going to ace my midterm. You failed every quiz. Who are you to ace your midterm? I'm going to make the all conference team next season. You're crazy. You fail at everything you try. If you are living up here in your conscious and you are not connected to your subconscious, you will never be able to steer that elephant, right? My 145 pounds of consciousness is not going to move that elephant in the direction that I want to take it. Now, okay, come back to me here. Now, here's what it looks like, okay, when you are aligned, when you know the messages that are hiding down below in your subconscious, and you are working together to actively push you where you want to go, okay? I'm going to leave my job and I'm going to start my business. Heck yeah, you are. We're ready to work hard. I'm going to ace my midterm. If you work hard enough, you're capable of anything. I'm going to make the all conference team next season. Heck yeah, you are. It is so much easier to be aligned and move that elephant forward when your head is aligned with what is going on in your subconscious. If there is conflict between the two, the ability for you to actually harness and move yourself forward is held back in a way whereby those dreams that I know that you have, whether they're career oriented, whether you are still in school and you have a dream about what you want to do to graduate, maybe you have a dream internship that you want to reach for, the more you can become aware of those limiting beliefs and those messages, the more you can work through them so that you are steering that 13,000 ton elephant in exactly the direction that you want to go. So let's take a little bit more of a practical look at what this thought process actually looks like. Okay, this is a thought loop. It's a simple tool that you can use to work through the way that you think and then how to reorganize, and re-engineer the way that you think. Excuse me. So let's start with the thoughts, right? My thought of what makes you think you're so special. Our thoughts control our feelings, which thereby control our behaviors, and then they create our results that then loop back to our thoughts. So if my thought was, who am I to be the next Katie Couric, right? I'm feeling pretty defeated when I make that statement, right? And what's the behavior that comes from that? I don't put broadcast journalism as my major. I put television management as my major. What's the result that then comes from that? I major in television management. I don't go after my dream, right? And then the thought becomes, oh, I never went after my dream, which makes me feel bad again, right? Which leads to worse behavior. It is a spiral, okay? So this is a loop that you can use at any point, right? If you catch yourself having a result that maybe it's not the intended result that you want, think back to say, oh, well, what's the behavior that led up to that result? Okay, and what was the feeling I was having when I made that behavior, when I acted that way? So then what was the thought behind that that caused that feeling? Similarly, if you're having a day where you're just in it and you're feeling really low, right? What are the thoughts? What are the thoughts that I'm having? And where do those thoughts come from? You can catch yourself at any point in this thought loop and re-engineer it to restart your thoughts and restart your day. So here's an example of a few people that have been able to change the trajectory of their lives based upon this work. So Lisa is actually a personal friend of mine. Lisa went to Cornell, but she was a lauded dancer. She actually got into Juilliard with a scholarship and was trying to decide between Juilliard and Cornell for her college. But at the time, she thought that, dancers didn't have longevity, right? So she thought that she should choose something that she could do for the rest of her life as a career. So she went to Cornell. She had a great experience. She met her husband. She graduated. She got into finance, worked on Wall Street, but she started to feel really empty inside. And at that point, she decided to bring dance back into her life. And through that, she realized how much she had missed connecting with that creative part of herself. Now, long story short, Lisa is now a professional choreographer. She works one-on-one with dancers. She trains professional dancers. She has a thriving business, and she has never felt more fulfilled because she allowed herself to explore a side of herself that she had then lost track of. Reyna was actually an intern of mine at CBS, and I'm going to talk about my career journey in a few moments here. Reyna came to me as a business development intern at CBS because she thought that she should do the safe thing after graduating from school, right? She actually had dreams of becoming the next Oprah. She wanted to be a thought leader. She wanted to have a media business, but here she was having an internship in business development because it made sense, right? And over the course of time, Reyna realized that if she didn't listen to her dreams, if she didn't actually go for it, right, she would never know. So she launched a podcast. She was still working. She launched a podcast where she now interviews brand leaders, thought leaders who are working in the creative environment and who are changing the world. And Reyna was able to transition using that podcast into working at Viacom CBS, where she now works with major brands and their brand identity to help them grow. And she still has an amazing platform in her podcast to create her media company. So she was able to use her thoughts and beliefs and the thought loop to actually create new results for herself in her life. Sam is a wonderful story. So Sam lost his brother and his father tragically within a year of each other. And at the time, he was in a sales role that I think he was selling paper door to door, not doing very well. He had an addiction. And when he lost his brother very shortly after losing his father, he decided something had to change. He wanted to change his results. And so he moved back to his behaviors and his thoughts. He did a lot of work on himself, and he ended up opening a gym that turned into a franchise, that turned him into a spokesperson for multiple brands. And he is now a chain owner that is on Instagram, that is on fire, and he has never felt more fulfilled and feeling like he has stepped into his life and his promise. And this doesn't just mean for your careers either. So Jessica is someone that I've known since I was very young. Jessica lived in the tri-state area and was raising her kids there. And over time, she and her husband started to feel really disconnected from the life that they had dreamed of living when they first got married. Over time, we're seeing more and more friends getting sick, more and more friends working themselves into stages of cancer, into burnout. And they decided that they wanted to create a different life. Even though their families all lived close by to them, they decided to pick up and move to North Carolina. And they now run a family business, and they are now extremely happy living a much slower pace of life. So this is not just about your career. This is about your life choices and how your thoughts and where you think you might be boxed in and you really have no choices because it is what you should do. You are in control. You are in the driver's seat of your life. Now, a bit of my story is that when I came out of school, right, I put my head down and I checked a lot of boxes, right? I got my promotions, I got married, I had kids, I made the top who's who lists, right? I checked every box that I thought that I was supposed to check. And at one point, I picked my head up when I thought that I got there, and I said, this is where I'm supposed to be happy. This was supposed to be everything. But yet I didn't feel that way. I felt super disconnected from all of the conditional happiness that I had placed on myself, right? When I get this salary, I'm going to feel happy. When I get this title, then I will feel accomplished, right? All of those things that we place on ourselves, the shoulds that we place on ourselves, right? I felt like I was in the passenger side. I felt like I was watching a video of my life go by and that I could easily stay here and watch it go and be at the end stage of my life, hopefully old, lying in bed, surrounded by family, and thinking about all of the things that I hadn't done. So I want to reiterate that you really are, no matter where you are, no matter whether you are in school, no matter whether you are 30 years into your career, you are in the driver's seat of your life and you get to make that choice. Now, on a daily basis today, I want to ask you, who's driving, right? Is it your fan club or is it your shitty committee, right? We all have them. We all have our fan clubs and we all have our shitty committees. The person that you are waking up as each day, right? Is your voice the one that's saying you're a failure? You're too stupid to do that, right? You'll never be good at that. You'll never make that team. You'll never pass that exam. Or is it the voice of your fan club, right? You're powerful. You're gorgeous. You're incredible, right? Who is driving your car? Who are you letting run the thoughts that are in your brain? A fun little tip, if you find yourself going through a spiral, right? Maybe you just gave a proposal that landed so flat, you epically burned out, right? Maybe you had a bad game, right? Maybe you just didn't show up today. And that happens to everybody, right? In that moment, who are you letting drive? Is it your fan club who might say, you know what? You're allowed to have a bad day. Let's learn from this. Let's move on. You'll get them next time, right? With the proposal, okay, let's take what we can learn from this and move on. Is it your fan club that's talking to you in that moment? Or is it that committee that's telling you, yeah, no, we might as well give up. Yeah, no, you know what? We knew you shouldn't have taken this job. We knew you shouldn't have taken this job, right? Every single day, it is a choice for you to say, who am I allowing drive my thoughts? Who am I allowing drive my life? And to get back to my own journey here, as Jeff mentioned, I spent about 14 years at CBS, kind of, rising through the ranks before I was asked to come over to Google to help them lead their global partnerships team. And about 4 years ago, I epically burned out. I was feeling really, really disconnected from myself and my life. As I mentioned, I checked all of those boxes and I was facing a decision. I was facing a decision whereby I could keep going on my current path. I was having weekly panic attacks, things that would normally come super easily to me, I struggled to do multiple times. I was not showing up for myself. And so I had a decision to make as to whether or not I wanted to continue down that path, knowing that there might be divorce in the future, knowing that there might be medical issues stemming from my burnout, right? Or I could choose a different path. I could choose to rebuild my life, to use what I had done up until this point, to learn from all of my experiences and take those to build a new ending, to build one that I'm happy with, to build one that I'm proud of, and to build one that aligns more with my values. And so what I'm going to walk you through now are the steps that I took to do so. So these steps I'm about to walk you through before I dive in, I want to let you know they are universal. So as I said, no matter whether you are 30 years into your career and you want to make a change, you've just started out and you're already saying, oh, I'm not so sure that this is for me, right? Or whether you're a semester or two into university and you're trying to decide, what do I want to major in, right? Maybe you're a senior and you're thinking, what do I want to do when I get out of school, right? These are universal steps and things that you can take that I really, really want you to walk away from here, knowing that you can use to create that future and create those narratives in your head for yourself. We have to have a tagline. These are the 5 transformative steps to redefining possibility. My brand coach loves that one. Step one is awareness. There's a reason why I talk so much about thoughts before I even get to these steps, because awareness of the way you're thinking and the fact that your thoughts control your feelings, control your behaviors, control your results. My telling you that enables you to understand and create awareness about your thoughts in the first place. So everything we've done up till now is to help you create awareness about the way that you think and the ways that you have been holding yourself back. It's also about creating awareness of where I am now and how are I and how you are. One of my favorite questions to ask people is, how are you really, right? Not like you're just passing somebody in the hallway saying, hey, how's it going? Oh, I'm doing great, right? No. How are you really? Intentionally stop and check in with yourself to think whether you are on that path that is going to lead you to that life that you have always dreamed of having. So everything we've been through so far, and me sharing my story, is tied to enabling you to create the awareness that is key to taking these next steps. Because unless we're aware of why we behave the way we do, or unless we're aware that we have a problem, we won't know what to do with it from there. So that's step one. Step two is curiosity, right? Once we've created that awareness, it's time to get a little bit curious about those things that we have dug up. Okay, so there's a tool I'm about to walk you through. It's called a journey map. Okay, now I'm going to take you through this step by step. If there's nothing else that you take away from this process, okay, this is the one tool that I would love to just gift you the ability to do. Okay, this is actually a tool that was taught to me at Oxford in the Women Transforming Leadership program that they've given me the permission to use in my coaching. And it's pretty simple. You don't need a fancy platform. You don't need anything other than a pen and paper. You don't have to get one now. It's okay. Just let me walk you through this. And you can always follow up with me later on if you want to go through it, but I'll talk about that later on. So it's actually relatively simple. You have an X and a Y axis. You unfortunately don't have the bottom axis here on the screen in my presentation, but you have time right at the bottom of your graph. And on the on my left-hand side here, on the other axis is where you are going to plot out your career. So you'll see here what I've done is I've plotted out my career from my first job outside of Boston University at CBS up until when I launched my coaching business, Redefine Possibility. Now, what I did is I chose to map my career based upon society's definition of success. So you'll see here in the in the humps that we have here, I started out as an assistant, very quickly got promoted to coordinator and manager, where I was overseeing my first team. And then I got a little antsy. I decided I wanted to learn about the cable industry. So I moved over to the Oxygen network. Now, based upon society's definition, they thought, well, gosh, she was at one of the best networks. And, at the time, network TV was the mecca. So for anybody who now is thinking like, oh, CBS, at the time, digital television was not what it is today. So a lot of people questioned my decision, right? They questioned why I would go from a prestigious big network where I was very well liked to a small independent network, but I wanted to learn more about the industry. Then after about 8 months, I was asked to come back to CBS to build a new revenue stream for them in their business development group. And then quickly after that, got promoted to vice president and then was recruited to work for the president of ad sales to help them build their digital revenue stream from an ad sales perspective. By all outside worlds, right, things were going really, really well. And that is when Google called and asked if I would come over to lead up a partnerships team for them, overseeing their relationships with some of their biggest media partners. And so, Google is in some ways a dream job, a dream place for people. I'll talk about my journey there in a moment, but then so leaving that to start a coaching business, a lot of people thought I was crazy. A lot of people I know judged and questioned that decision. So this first step, again, is it could be a straight line if you just want to map it over time, but you are going to map your career out over time. Now, if you are one of my current student athletes, right, you could choose to use this tool to map out your athletic career. You could choose, if you're a regular student as well, you could choose to, and you're a senior, maybe in college, and you're thinking about maybe what do I want to do after I get out? I'm not really sure, right? You can use this to map out your journey through college and include maybe your courses. You can include internships you've had, but plot those over time. Right? So what we're going to do is we're going to use this as a reflection tool to pull out the threads of the things that you like, the things that maybe you don't like as much, right? And then start to build those together to use that information to help fuel how you want to move forward. So step one, build your x-axis, build your y-axis, and chart your career over time. Now, the next step is you are going to chart another line that is based upon your definition of success. Okay. So for me, my definition of success is fulfillment. Okay. So that's what I've done here on this line. So this yellow line here on the screen is my career journey charted based upon where I was most fulfilled. So when I started out at CBS, I was drinking from a fire hose. I couldn't believe I was in the TV industry. It was amazing. I loved it. Right. Moving over to a small independent cable network, realized how much I missed working with known branded content. Going back to CBS in my first position, building this new revenue stream that ended up being an over $2.5 billion revenue stream for the company. It was huge. I was part of a small team building something. It was great. Getting promoted to vice president being that peak, where then that's where I started listening to a lot of those shoulds, right? I started hearing from a lot of people, oh, you could be amazing at this. I want you to come over and do this. Did you ever think about? And I started getting enamored with a lot of those external factors, the titles, the salaries, who I was working with, who I was reporting to, what I could do. And I let that start to lead my decision-making, right? Whereby I took the position in ad sales, working for someone who was absolutely wonderful, but I got into the TV business because I loved the content side of the business, not because I loved the ad side of the business. I actually took a great course at BU in ad sales that I liked, I did well in, but it didn't fire me up as much as the other stuff, right? But this makes sense over here. So I'm going to go do this, right? And that kind of started that downward spiral in fulfillment, whereby when Google called, I was already starting to feel burnout. I didn't recognize it at the time. And I thought, okay, well, maybe I just need to change jobs, right? Like maybe I'm not feeling, maybe I've been at CBS for 14 years. Maybe I just need to change, right? So maybe I should go ahead and just change jobs, right? The whole grass is greener scenario, okay? If I'm honest, when I read that job description, I had no desire to do that job, no desire whatsoever to do the job that was in the job description. But it's Google, you go, you have the interview, right? And the people were wonderful. And yes, the perks are absolutely amazing. I did not take any naps in the nap pods, but I did have plenty of free coffee and free food. But so sure, if I'm going to leave CBS, it's going to be for a company like Google, right? Moved over there and knew very early on that it was not a good fit for me. But instead of using that to make an informed decision and an intentional decision about what I wanted to do next, I said, you know what? It's going to be embarrassing for me if I leave and go back. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to work harder. I'm sure that I'm going to get this. I'm sure that if I just work harder, if I put my head down, right, if I learn more, if I meet more people, if I put myself out there more, right, I'm going to get it. It's going to come. I'm going to like it. It just hasn't been long enough. And I worked myself right into a stage of burnout. Again, panic attacks. I mean, I'm aging myself here, but I will never forget changing laundry at about 9 o'clock at night, my BlackBerry buzzing, literally bursting into tears because I just could not bear to open it. I couldn't bear to look at one more email, right? So that's where you see my fulfillment line reach bottom, right? And at that point, I knew I had to do something to jog my brain. I had to do something to challenge myself to remember who I used to be. And I had worked with a coach or very early on in my career. And I remember loving that process. And I remember thinking at the time, there's something about this. There's something about this that, that I think I find really interesting, right? But at the time, I just kind of shoved it aside and kept doing what I was doing. And so when I was at my lowest point and I thought, I've got to do something, I thought, I'm going to look back into that coaching. I'm going to look back into that coaching and see what it's like. So I signed up for a 9-month certification program while I was still working. And I ended up loving it. I ended up feeling so connected with the work that I was doing that there was no way that I could not do it. So after about 9 months of that, when I got my certification, my contract with Google was up around the same time. And I decided to leave and start my business. And that's where you see that fulfillment line kind of come back up for me. But again, it's that intersection between what made sense for society and what made sense for me. So if you're doing this for your career standpoint, you're going to map your career out over time in this line based upon your definition of success, right? And if you're in school and you're thinking about what you want to do after that, right? What is my definition of success based upon what I want to do in my career? It could be making money. It could be work-life balance. It could be fulfillment like me. That's a very personal decision for you to make. If you are one of my student athletes and you're thinking this might be a great tool to look back at this season to see the environment where I thrived, when I did my best, what games was I at my best? What games was I at my lowest? What can I learn from that, right? On this line, you might put performance. You might put happiness in my game, right? Again, that metric is yours to draw, right? But this is what that line is for. So first step, map your career over time. Second step, then map your career or whatever you're defining here based upon your definition of success. The next step would be to break that journey into seasons, right? So often when we are in it on a daily basis, right? When you're in postseason, when you're in midterms, when you're in your career and you're coming home to your kids and you're commuting or you're working from home and you're exhausted, right? When you are so in it, we say like, you're on that second floor, right? You're in an elevator and you're on that second floor and you are just there, right? This step is about hitting that button in the elevator and rising up in a glass elevator to floor 35, right? You're going to that 30,000 foot view where you can look out over your history, you can look out over your journey, and you can gain some perspective on everything that you've been through and all the amazing experiences that you have had. So in this step, you're going to go ahead and map out the phases of your journey. So for me, that looks like I came out of school and I was infatuated with being in the TV business, right? Then after like 2 or 3 years in, it was time to learn. It was time to dig in. Before then, moving on to what I call my growth and ego phase, right? Where I started really hitting my stride and I hit that runway, getting promotions, getting the salaries, okay? And then I moved into my next phase, which I call shoulding all over myself, right? Which is where I was getting really lost listening to the shoulds, listening to the, I should take this opportunity because I make more money. It's the title. It gets me closer to all the things, right? I should stay at work because that's what my boss says, right? I should be this kind of mom, right? I should still be class mom, right? Because that's what a good mom does, right? That was that phase where I was just so in it and that the ego pieces were driving every single one of my decisions, right? And then I had a period of realization where I reloaded and then I hit takeoff when I found coaching. Okay. Lastly, after you do these phases, what I want you to do is you need to start looking at, and I'm pointing, kind of over here at my screen here. So that's why I'm going like this and getting so into it. You want to take a look at those high points, right? For me, that would be in that growth and ego phase, right? You want to take a look at the high points and conversely, the low points of your journey, and ask yourself these questions. What was I doing at that time? What were the circumstances that allowed me to be in that case, right? Get really curious about what was going on for you at this time, right? And so say you're looking back at your college career thinking, I don't know what I want to do, but let me look back at maybe my course load, right? Just because you liked your English class doesn't mean that that's what you need to do for the rest of your life. But what was it about that English class? Was it group-based? Were you mostly working by yourself? Were you spending a lot of time reading? Were you doing presentations, right? Similarly, if this is your career journey, right, and you had a career that you really loved, right, what were you doing? What were your responsibilities? Were you managing people? Were you an individual contributor, right? Were you commuting a long way? Were you working from home? Did you have flexibility? What were all of the circumstances that were going on for you at that time that enabled you to be at that high point? And then conversely, what were the circumstances that had you at those low points? Those low points in your journey where you didn't feel aligned with what you were doing, where you were dragging yourself out of bed every single day to show up, whether it was for your team, yourself, right? What was going on for you at that time? The more we know, the more we can get curious about what our journeys tell us, the more we have clues and the more we can use that in order to inform us on how we're moving forward. Another great reason that we do this exercise, especially when I have career coaching clients, is because this is going to also tell you what your must-haves are. Okay. So say you're a part of this great resignation and you're about to find your new job and you were going through and you were interviewing, right? And you are able to use this to look back and say, you know what? I know that I work best as part of a team. I can't be an individual contributor. I need to be in a team and I need to be managing people. I know that I need to have a commute that is less than an hour and I need to work from home 2 days a week. Those are the optimal circumstances for me to perform my best, right? I know that I need to be eating clean. I know that before exams, I can't be going out at night, right? What are those must-haves that you must have in order to perform at your best and learn from the conditions that challenge you in your hardest times? The one very last thing is also if you are able to tell if there are any catalyst points, right? So right before my rise in that growth and ego phase, right? I was part of a team where I had an amazing mentor. I've had a lot of great mentors, but this person was a mentor. She was a sponsor. I learned so much from her. That for me was a catalyst in loving my job enough to do an amazing job in my work, right? Same thing, catalyst on the way down, accepting a job that I was not aligned with. What are those catalyst moments, if you can tell, that enabled you to be on that rocket ship? And what are those catalysts that had you going down on your path? So chart your career over time, chart it by your level of success, break it into phases, and pull out those high points and low points that enabled you to be at both your best and your most challenged, and use that to get curious about now what you need going forward. We can't change what happened in the past. The best thing that you can do is look at it with a sense of curiosity, removing the emotion from it so that you can use it to inform the way that you are moving forward. Okay, now, step 3, decision-making. Okay, we're not taking action yet. What we're doing here in this step is simply deciding to make a decision. Now, for me, it was that moment in the basement when my BlackBerry was buzzing and I was breaking down in tears and I still had to put my kids to bed, was I can't do this anymore. I cannot wake up tomorrow knowing that I have to do this again. So in that moment, I didn't know what was changing. I had no idea what I was going to do, but I knew that something had to change. I made the decision to move on from being in that place. So it's a lot about what this step and this piece is. Again, it's not action yet. You are still allowed to be lost in it, but simply making that decision, right? I no longer want to weigh this amount. I no longer want to work for this person. I no longer want to show up every day as this person. Make that decision. single most important question you can ask yourself when you find yourself in this decision-making phase is, what is it costing me to remain in my current situation? What is it costing me to remain in this spiral, in this swirl? What is it costing me to remain in this job? What is it costing me to remain feeling so stuck, right? What is it costing me to not put the work in for my team? What is it costing me to not take my education seriously, right? What is it costing me? For me, it was costing me my health, and it was costing me my family. And I knew that those were two things that were way too important to continue down that path. Now, you might decide, you know what? I'm actually doing okay. I'm feeling stuck, but it's not really costing me anything. And that's okay. Then it's a matter of looking at what are all of the little decisions and circumstances that you can change outside of you, right? If you're choosing to remain in that situation, you can totally make that choice. Again, it's up to you. You're driving, it's your choice. But if your answer is tied to your health, your physical health, your mental health, your well-being, or anything that's important to you or any of your values, I would urge you to decide to make a decision to change. What is it costing me to remain in my current situation? Now, in the decision-making process, one thing, one element that crops up that is really important to talk about is fear. Fear so often creeps in after we decide to make a decision. Sometimes it's the fuel for our decisions. But here's the thing, fear is actually a really, really good thing. Many of you probably are already aware of this, but fear is why the human race still exists. Our brains are chemically wired to keep us safe, right? They are looking, in caveman days, they are looking for those elements that are going to come out and attack us, right? They're looking for those things that are physically going to kill us. So our brains have not evolved so far beyond that, whereby our brain is still trying to keep us in our comfort zones. Right? We have a zone of familiarity, our comfort zones. And anytime we go to stretch ourselves beyond that, our brain literally acts as border control, saying, oh, wait, this is new. This isn't normal. No, we need to stick her back in this, right? We don't know. This could kill us. We don't know, right? So fear actually keeps us safe. Fear can be a good thing. We don't need to bust through it. We need to work with it and understand the way that it serves us. But when you are facing that decision, when you've decided, okay, that's it, I'm making a change, I can't do this anymore, that is where your fear response will kick in. And that can show up in a lot of different ways. And I call this the fear flavors, right? So I'm going to go ahead and list a ton of things that actually are fear responses. And when you see these, go ahead and put them in the chat if there are any of them that resonate with you. So procrastination. I will admit that I was telling Jeff and Emily earlier, when I was preparing to give this talk earlier today, I decided that it was time to vacuum my baseboards, right? I don't vacuum my baseboards, but I decided in that moment that it was what I had to be doing instead of working on rehearsing this presentation. That's procrastination, right? There's a level of fear in there, okay? Overwhelm, avoidance, distraction, right? We talked about waking up in the morning and grabbing these, right? Scrolling on our phones. Distraction is a form of fear that is keeping us from doing the things that will move us forward. Perfectionism, okay? Lack of clarity, binge eating, lack of self-care, arrogance, beating yourself up, and self-judgment. Okay, I know we're getting close to time, Jeff, so I'm gonna move forward very quickly here. Step 4, envisioning. You want to create a vision that fires you up so much, okay, and create a vision board. You're going to go ahead and create a Pinterest board, something that just speaks to you so highly that enables you to connect with who you want to become. You made the decision, create the vision that then goes along with that decision. Okay, step 5, action. You've got to take that leap, right? You've created awareness, step 1. You've gotten curious, step 2. You've made the decision to change, step 3. You're creating an amazing vision for yourself in step 4. You've got to take the leap. When I was deciding to leave Google, one of my favorite quotes was, you can't be that kid standing at the top of the water slide, overthinking it. You have to go down the chute. You have to take those steps. They don't have to be big, but you are worth taking any action step, whether it's a journey map, whether it's calling a coach, whether it's going to see a therapist. You are worth taking those steps to move you forward. If you are a student, you have so many wonderful resources at your availability with the university. Take one small step tomorrow to move you forward, because you can't go back and change the beginning, but you can start where you are and change the ending. So thank you so much. I know I went through those last few slides relatively quickly. So Jeff, thank you so much. If anybody wants to go into any of these steps anymore or find out anything more about myself or my process, you can feel free to email me at amyyoung@redefinepossibility.com. And I really, really hope that you can take some of these tools with you on your journey to figure out what your next is.
Amy, that was fantastic. And I will make sure to send you a copy of the chat, because there are so many folks weighing in throughout your talk with just really resonating with so many things that you had said. Do you have a hard stop at 8 o'clock? Because we do have a couple great questions that came in that if you're okay going over by just a few minutes, maybe we can try to do a little bit of rapid fire.
I am
some of those.
Totally fine with that. Thank you to those who can hang in. Thank you very much.
Yeah, hopefully people can stick around. So Laura asked a great question. Could there be times when affirmations that sound like those from the Internal Wisdom Committee can actually lead you down a path of excessive inflation, and that they can lead you down a path that's not good for you, that you don't really desire?
Okay, so if I understand the question correctly, there's a few things at play there. And one is that we don't want to use affirmations to bypass feelings and emotions, right? We really don't. If we are waking up, right, in a state where we are not connected, where we're not feeling aligned, where we are just really in it, feeling some deep stuff, right? It's really unlikely that you are going to be able to connect to the like, I'm awesome, I'm great, I'm going to have just the best day ever, right? That's why affirmations can sometimes get a little bit sticky. So it's not about bypassing the emotion that we're in. It's using your fan club in a way to speak to you. So in this circumstance, it would be grace to say, it's okay that we're having a tough day. Right? That's what your fan club might choose to say to you that day, instead of saying like, it's fine, you've totally got this, you can bust through it. Because the minute that we start bypassing our feelings and our emotions, right, is the minute that we just start stuffing them down a bit deeper, and they have the ability to then manifest in other ways. So I believe that answers kind of the first part of the question. The second part, with inflation, if you are truly tied to a particular affirmation, right, and it's something that connects you to your goals, I don't necessarily see a time when that becomes over arrogance. But if there's something in particular that you want to raise with me, a certain circumstance that maybe I'm not understanding the second part of the question correctly, you can 100% email me and we'll go ahead and work through it.
That's great that you left your email here along with your website. Nicholas asked, do you incorporate mindfulness, acceptance, commitment into your work? For example, there's research that has shown that many individuals with low self-esteem feel worse when they try to use positive affirmations, and that mood can be improved by normalizing negative thoughts.
Yeah, so I think that actually ties to what I was just talking about in terms of bypassing that actual thought. Completely agree with you that it's really important to honor kind of where you are and what you're feeling. And, from a work perspective, this is where some of that bringing your whole self to work, kind of comes in. If any of you have kind of heard that phrase before, right? It's not necessarily having to suit up, right, and put the mask on, but it's enabling yourself to say like, no, it's okay. And I talk a lot in my work about belief work, and yes, mindfulness is a big part of that as well. But so often when you are operating and you're starting from a lower level, where maybe you have more of like victim, thinking going on, getting you from a place of I'm not smart enough to a place of like, I'm amazing and I could do anything. There's such a big disconnect there that often be aware that you could be looking for a bridge belief, right? Kind of that middle belief to get you to that eventual place. You might just need to take it down a notch. Find like, okay, if that doesn't resonate with me, right? If that whether you do like using affirmations and it's an affirmation or it's a belief that you want to step into, if that just feels too far away because you're so down here in it, find that next thing. I'll just give one quick example of that, which is, mine for the longest time, especially when I first started my business. In addition to the tied to the what makes you think you're so special, was like, who are you? Who are you to think that you can, start your own business, right? And my bridge belief for that first year, for that period of time was, why not me? So like every day when I found myself in that place, it wasn't like, I've got this, right? It was, why not me, right? Why couldn't it be me? So then when I really felt that, it enabled me to move on to the next higher belief.
Christos is wondering how you define fulfillment or happiness objectively when you're just still in a place that you don't enjoy.
Yeah, it's a really, really good question. And so fulfillment is something that's really personal for everyone. I know when I was at that low point, for me, it meant that I felt it was worth it to leave the house every day. Now, I've never felt a calling to be a stay-at-home mom. I have 3 kids. I've always enjoyed working. I've always liked having work. But for me, my work had to be worth it for me to leave the house and leave them every day. It had to be worth, right? Like knowing that I was going to come home some nights stressed out or tired. The trade-off for me wasn't there. So fulfillment for me for a period of time was just tied to doing something that was worthy of me, like leaving all of these other personal pursuits behind. So again, it doesn't have to be like a lofty, I love my job, right? Sort of thing. That doesn't need to be what fulfillment is for you, right? It can be just getting you to a baseline. If you are a person who is feeling so disconnected and burned out.
Last question. Katie wants to hear more about your BU soccer career. What position did you play?
Oh, Katie, thank you. So I was a defender. I was both an outside defender and a central defender, but I was not a defender until I got to college. Well, I should say I was a stopper for a little bit, but I was a forward. And I honestly wasn't fast enough to play forward at the Division I level. And I ended up playing defense. And what's hysterical about that is it really helped because I knew the way that a forward's mind worked. So I was able to anticipate their movements. But now I can't play forward anymore. I play in a women's league and like an old fogies, over 40 women's league. And I'm playing with people that I grew up with that know me as a forward. They're like, I can't believe you're a defender. I'm like, I can't shoot anymore. I don't know, Nancy, if you're still on, I don't know what you did, but like, I can't be a forward anymore. But I loved playing soccer at BU. I could talk about that for another hour. I won't, but thank you for asking. I was on the first team to win our conference championship and go to the NCAA tournament. So I'm still extremely proud of that. And it holds a special place in my heart and my mind. So thank you for bringing that up.
Nancy is Coach Feldman and she's still here. Thanks for coming tonight, Coach. Well, Amy, this was fantastic. I want to echo something that Alexander made a comment in the chat. It was, thank you for your honesty. It's never, I don't think it's ever easy for somebody to share a story that personal. And you, the way that you wove in these very personal things, the way that you shared them with everybody here tonight and put them into this, literally a map that people can use to make a change in their lives. It's incredibly valuable. And I know I speak for Emily here. We're just so thankful that you were willing to do this for the BU community, for our alumni around the world, for our student athletes and all of our students. So thank you so much for doing this for us tonight.
Thank you so much for having me. It was wonderful.
I want to thank all of our guests for participating. Thank you, Emily, for doing this with me. I want to again recognize National Girls and Women in Sports Day and ask everybody, we got a ton of people in the New England area. We've got some great events coming up on campus. Friday, the women's hockey team is playing UConn, 7 p.m. at Walter Brown Arena. And then on Saturday, the women's basketball team is playing Lehigh at 2 p.m. at the Roof. And you can always find out more information about supporting BU women's athletics and all of our teams on goterriers.com. I want to make sure that all of you check out, if you haven't already joined BU Connects, you see above me. That's our online networking and mentoring community, a great place to find folks to help with your professional development, get a door opened at a place that you're trying to get a job or an internship, find a mentor. Make sure you join if you haven't done that already. We've got another great career webinar coming up next week. You can sign up for that in every webinar that we do on our website, bu.edu/alumni. And I always want to thank all of our donors. We wouldn't be able to do this work without your support. So thanks again, everybody. Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Emily. And I hope everybody has a great day, a great evening, wherever you might be in the world. Take care.